Hey guys, you should have already completed your daily warm-up down here by now. If not, pause this and go back and complete that. Make sure you have your packet out with classwork number 5 so we can review your homework answers from last night. So, what's happening today? You guys will be able to write linear equations in slope-intercept form from a given graph, a little bit just like we did yesterday. Homework tonight is to complete homework 6. That is in your packet, and don't forget that you have a graded warm-up tomorrow. It's going to be on writing an equation in slope-intercept form. Also, I'm going to make sure that you can graph a line or two, and make sure that you can calculate slope. So either using rise over run or using the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so let's look at the warm-up first. Okay, did you notice that once you submitted an answer, you can't go back to change it later? Did that on purpose. So looking at this first one, write the equation of a line that has a slope of 1/3 and a y-intercept of -4. You should have typed in the equation y equals 1 divide 3 for the 1/3, x, and then just -4. For the second equation, or question, it said this graph is the graph of the equation -2/3 x minus 1. So my y-intercept is this -1, and my slope is this -2/3. So y-intercept is where I begin. I go down to this -1, and it's -2/3. So negative means I go down 2. So this should have been false. The next question, if you said false to the equation above, what was wrong with it? Well, we just said that the slope was incorrect because it should have been decreasing, so we had to go down 2 and write 3. So you should have picked that middle choice. And question number 4, this could have been a little tricky because there were a lot of multiple drop downs, but it says to write the equation of the line that has a point 4, -1, and a y-intercept of 2. So this is a little different than what we did on Tuesday. So I know that 4 represents the x because it's the x value in this ordered pair. I know that -1 represents the y value because that's the second part of the ordered pair. And then it says and 2 represents, that's the y-intercept. But what letter represents that here? B. Plug in the values and then solve, or to help you solve. So the equation should look like, so we're using, what's our y, because it has the equal sign after. So our y we said was -1. So you could have looked at the information you said above. Equals, well, m, we didn't mention that, so we're just going to leave that as a variable. And then the x we said above was 4. And then plus b, and you said b is this 2 here. So I'm going to say plus 2. So the whole reason why I wouldn't let you go back is because when we got to this question. Plus I wanted to make sure you solved correctly. So your equation for that last question would have looked like this if it didn't have all those drop downs. So now you have to solve it. And we're solving for this letter m. Okay, so solving for m here, and solving for m here. So this m4 may have thrown you off. So that's why I rewrote it here. So that way you could recognize how to solve. To solve that, we should have subtracted 2 here. So let me pull up the desktop screen real quick. So if we subtract 2 from both sides, cancels on the right, -1 minus 2 becomes -3 equals 4m. Now I'm solving for m, so I have to divide by 4. So m would have been -3/4. If you wrote it as a decimal, you could have said -0.75 or that -0.75. I made sure all of those were acceptable. So let's go back to our regular flip chart. Now we're going to look over the classwork 5 answers, okay? We did all of these yesterday, so I'll just leave it up here for a second so that way you can solve. Notice that this is wrong. 0, 0. This should be -3. So it should have been 3x minus 3. Okay, the back, we got the graph number 1. We did this yesterday, we did this yesterday, and we did this yesterday. But here you are just in case. 4, 5, and 6 are here. Don't forget, you can use your graphing calculator to double check your work. So for example, I'm going to do that here. So if I want to graph this first equation here, -4x plus 1, I go to y equals, maybe, type 4. Why is this not working? Let's see what happens now. Here we go. Y equals. So we'll do 4x. Notice this is next to alpha. And then, oh, it's supposed to be negative. Negative is this button down here next to the dot, to the decimal point. So -4x, and then it's plus 1. So I'll slide this over so you can see it. -4x plus 1. Then you press graph. You can always zoom in or out, but if you hit second graph, you can look at the table of values. So that can also help you graph the different points there, okay? So these are the answers to 4, 5, and 6. Feel free to pause if you need. And here's 7 through 12. Pause here if you need to check your answers. Okay, classwork 6, we're writing the equation given when you're given a graph. So you first need to identify, well, I guess I wrote it down below, identify B and M. Okay, so down here, graphing lines begin with B, identify the y-intercept. Remember that touches the y-axis, that's the vertical axis. And then you move using the slope. So for this first graph, my y-intercept is down here, so that means B equals -4. And then in order to find the slope, I'm moving to this next point. I'm going up 1, 2, 3, so I'm rising 3, so that's positive. And then I'm running 2, which is also positive. So my slope here, my m, is 3 over 2. I would write my equation in this y equals mx plus b. I have y equals 3/2 x minus 4. So this is b, this is m. Number 2, my y-intercept here is +2. My slope now, it's going down. So I'm going down 1, 2, 3, 4, so -4, and then I'm running 1. So my slope is -4. If I put that together in my equation, remember I'm putting something in for m and something in for b, I have y equals -4x plus 2. Number 3, my y-intercept is down here at this -3. And my slope is also decreasing again. So I'm going down 1 and I'm running 3. So my slope is -1 over 3. When we put that together, y equals m, which is -1/3, x, and then -3 because that's b. Number 4. Looks a little difficult to see here, but this is the x-axis and this is the y-axis. So it looks like there's this point right here. And we can just make sure by looking at the slope first, just to make sure we're right. So this is going down 1, 2, 3, 4, and going right 2. So negative 4 over 2. So if I went down 4 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, right 2, that would make sense. So negative 4 over 2. M equals negative 4 over 2. I can simplify that, and that's negative 2. So my equation is going to start off with y equals negative 2x, because this is my slope that I just found. And our y-intercept is right here at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So b is negative 5. So I'll put that up here after the x. Number 5. This is my x-axis, this is my y-axis. I see my y-intercept right there, so b is negative 1. My slope, I'll start up at this point and come down. I'm going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm running 1, 2, 3, 4. So my slope is negative 5 over 4, because this is the rise, even though I went down, and this 4 is the run. So my equation is y equals negative 5/4 x, and my y-intercept was minus 1. Feel free to try the rest of the questions on your own and come back just to check the answers. Number 6, my y-intercept is right here at 0, 0. That's the origin, so b equals 0. My slope is increasing, it's going up 1 and running 2, so my slope, or m, is 1/2. My equation here is just going to be y equals 1/2 x. You could say the plus 0 at the end, but you really don't have to. Number 7, this also starts at the 0 here, and I need to look to see where the other points are that are perfectly in line. So I'm going to say this looks like 1, and this looks like 1 here. And notice I'm not choosing this point here because it's not really in the corner. So my origin again, or b, is my y-intercept. And my slope here is I'm going up 1, 2, 3, rising 3, and I'm running 1. So my slope is just 3. So y equals 3x plus 0. Do I have to write the plus 0? No. So you could just say it's y equals 3x. Number 8, I have my y-intercept here, so b is 1. My slope looks like this is a nice point, looks like this is a nice point. So my slope, I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, so negative 3, and I'm running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my slope here equals negative 3 over 5. Remember, you're reading it from left to right, and it's going down. So my equation is going to be negative y equals negative 3/5 x, and then plus 1 for my y-intercept. Number 9, I have my y-intercept here at this negative 4. If I find another point here, looks like right here is nice. Slope is now I'm going down 2 and I'm running 3. So negative 2/3. Put that together in your equation. Y equals negative 2/3 x minus 4. Remember, you can always check your work using the graphing calculator. So let's check using, let's say we do number 8. So if I go to my calculator, I go back to y equals, I'll clear this out. Make sure you don't have any other equations in here. If you do, just go ahead and clear those out. So we said we're using this equation, y equals negative 3/5 x plus 1. So I'm going to use this negative 3x, divide 5x, so we have the negative 3/5 x, and then plus 1. So I'm going to graph that. We see this graph here. It's helpful-ish. But let's see. We want to make sure our y-intercept is at this 1. And we want to make sure we have another point here at this 5, negative 2. Okay, so I'm going to look at the graph to make sure I did that right. So I'll hit second graph because the word above graph says table. So the blue and the blue, they match. Yours might be yellow and yellow. So we have our y-intercept here. We have our 0, 1, which tells me that's my y-intercept. If I go down, I wanted to look for that point at 5, negative 2. And look, that works. So that tells me that we graphed that correctly. So we finished classwork 6. So you have plenty of time to work on homework number 6. So let's get started. So we're going to write an equation in slope-intercept form, and then we're going to graph it. So I'll go back to the yellow and blue. So slope is m, 1/4 here. So our slope is m. And our y-intercept is b. And in this case, it's going to be negative 2. So when I write my equation, I'm going to have y equals m for number 1 is 1/4. And then x, and then I have to write my y-intercept, so my b will be minus 2. We're going to graph this. So I'm going to start down here at negative 2. And I'm going to go up 1, right 4, and up 1, right 4. Then I'll go down 1, right 4, and down 1, right 4. Number 2. My y-intercept, my slope is 3, negative 3, and my y-intercept is 5. When I write this as an equation, it's going to be y equals negative 3x plus 5. When we graph this, we're going to start at that plus 5. The graph, or the slope, is negative 3, so I'm going to go down 3, right 1. You can just graph a couple points. You need to finish this homework for Friday and be prepared for your warm-up quiz.